are you feeling these days? Good?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so yeah, I'm feeling a little exhausted now, actually. But yeah, I'm doing this talk with you, and then I'm having the rest of the day off. So
Oh, good. I'm glad you're
I'm gonna
getting
take the dog for a walk.
excellent. So we're live on Facebook and we're just hi there. Happy Friday, everyone. Jamie and I are already engaged in conversation. He's my first guest. So I'll just go right into it. Thank you again so much for joining us for another amazing episode of Empowered Talks. The Rocky Road to Success, which is actually going to be followed after today by my next book, which will be the Rocky Road, our Rocky Road to Inner Peace. It'll be an anthology. So if you're interested, let me know and we'll talk and we'll get you into the book. So I'm not sure what's happening. So what happened yesterday after I finished day one, my computer did this automatic upgrade and I'm like, oh, and there's all these different things happening on Facebook. So let me get to Jamie's bio if I can find it. Hopefully I have it here, Jamie. Do I not have your bio, honey? I don't think I do. I think you're gonna have to introduce yourself.
It's no problem. So, hello everyone. My name is Jamie McAnsh. I'm a globe speaker, keynote speaker. I'm also an entrepreneur, run several businesses. I've recently exited one of my companies, and now I sit on the non-exec board of a business development company called Champions UK PLC, where we work with organizations all around the globe, helping them to audit, develop strategies, create information, and activate so that they can take their business into success and growth.
Excellent. Well, then I'm going to let you proceed with your amazing talk. This is not Jamie's first visit to Empowered Talks. I don't know which one it is. I've lost count, thank goodness. But you are welcome anytime. And Jamie, where do you come from?
So I'm currently based in Cardiff, which is in South Wales, the UK.
There you go. Directly from the UK on Empowered Talks, I give you the most amazing, wait till you hear Jamie's story. It's amazing. If you think you can't, ha ha ha, joke's on you. Jamie's going to change your mind. Go for it, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Marianne. And it is always lovely to be here, and it's always lovely to be a part of these events and to be able to share your story and to encourage other people to basically get out there and understand that sometimes that road to success isn't always straight. Sometimes it has ups, sometimes it has downs, sometimes the surface is not always as smooth as we would like. And that's okay. And what I want to try and do when through this talk, and each time I've worked with Marianne, I've always done something slightly different. I've always did a slightly different remination of my journey. And this time I really want to talk about that journey from being from zero into success, because it starts, I always say that you start networking before you can talk. And it's absolutely true. And that is the key to any level of success. It's not necessarily about what you know, what knowledge you have, or even to the point of what experience you have. It's the people you know that you can embody that experience upon, and where you can then learn from them. And it's those joint experiences that will help you and guide you and develop you and build you. And eventually you will be whatever your version of success is. And the reason why I say your version is everybody has a different impression of success. Some people just want to get up every day, go to work, do their job, work for 8 hours, come home. And their idea of success is to have a nice family, a nice home, holiday twice a year. That kind of just simple, plain, easy existence. And I've got nothing against that. Like if that's their version of success, then and they're at peace with that, that's great. And I'm proud and blessed to be able to know that. For me, success is slightly different, and I match my success on a whole different element. I've always had a lifelong vision, and that vision is to help people understand the value of survival so that then they know what's thriving actually looks like. And it's something that we don't do. We always want to look at success. We always want to look at the end goal, where we want to be, what we want to achieve, what we want to out of life. And that's a good thing to be. They're your dreams. And that's what dreams are all about. Dreams are about the places you want to go to, the people you want to become, the things that you want, what you want out of life, where you want to go and see, those experiences you want to create for yourself. Those are dreams. But goals, see, goals are the stepping stones in which we have to embark to reach our dreams. And if we don't have dreams, we've got nothing to set our goals upon. And if we don't have goals, we'll never achieve our dreams. And that's the marriage between the two. Now, for me, my story starts way back when I was in school, and I was not an academic person. My maths teacher once told me the only numbers I'd ever make up were numbers on the benefits queues, and my English teacher told me I had no concept of the English language. Every teacher I've ever had has told me at one point or another that my biggest problem was I talk too much. And now I'm a global brand. I work all over the world. I'm a renowned motivational speaker. I've written books. I'm in the process of writing another book, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. So it's quite obvious that just because someone tells you that you shouldn't be able to do something, or tells you that you're not going to do something, it doesn't mean that that's fact. And at the same time, if someone tells you you're going to be successful and that you're talented, that doesn't mean that you're going to reach where you need to go. It takes hard work. It takes hard work. It takes determination. It takes a support network. It takes commitment. It takes determination. So when I left school and joined the army, I had a very interesting career. It wasn't until I was in the army that I was diagnosed with quite severe neurodiversity. I'm dyslexic, I'm dyscalculiate, and up until recently, the realization that I'm also ADHD. So it's no surprise in that my life has been a boomerang of experiences, jumping from this thing into that thing, jumping from that into that. And for me, actually, conforming to other people's expectations, whether it be in the forces, whether it be in school. I never went to college or university, but going into the workplace and working for other people with their rule books and their conformities, I struggled with that. And actually, the first time I've ever felt truly myself as an individual, where I could be the person that I was and react the way I wanted to react and act the way I wanted to act and to be completely true with myself, wasn't until I became an entrepreneur. And that journey in itself is an interesting one, because in 2014, in January the 6th, 2014, like anybody else, I went to bed. During my sleep, I had a massive spasm. That spasm was so violent, it caused catastrophic damage to the lower sensory nerves in my spinal column, and it damaged everything from the L1 and L2 down. Now, this left me incompletely paralyzed. It left me with reduction in my ability to defecate, urinate, and ejaculate, as well as not being able to walk, my independence, my dignity, my pride, my manhood, all put in a box and stuck on a shelf. And I had a choice. I had choices to make at that point, but these were choices that were uneducated. I had no support network. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was aiming to achieve. And then for me, I thought that the only way out was suicide. And I thought this because I generally felt like I was a burden. I felt like I was a burden on society. I felt like I was a burden on my friends and on my family. Now, I failed my suicide attempt. And it was because of that suicide attempt that I then discovered the things. Someone recommended that I try sport. I didn't really know what the connection was. I asked the question, what is sport going to do? He said, nothing, but right now you've got nothing to lose. So I started playing sport. I loved it. But this was the first time I was surrounded by a network of like-minded people, not people that knew my condition, not people that knew my journey, knew my story, knew my pathway, but people that could empathize, people that had their journeys and their experience, and they could share those experiences with me, which gave me education. With that education, that gave me knowledge. And I started playing wheelchair basketball first. I later went on and started playing wheelchair rugby. I then started hand cycling, doing archery, racing motorcycles, playing squash, climbing mountains in a wheelchair. I've broken records. I've pioneered disability sport. I've pioneered inclusion, and I've pioneered other people's way of thinking around disabilities. I've gone where most people with a disability wouldn't even dream of going. I've gone to places where most people who haven't got a disability wouldn't dream of going. I remember being in the physio room for the first time, and I've had all sorts of physios. I've had physiotherapy, hydrotherapy, neurotherapy, electroshock therapy. I've had psychological therapy. I've had both psychology and psychiatric care, all trying to understand what is going on. Why am I struggling? Why am I in the position I'm in? But I had a goal. I had a dream and I had a goal. My dream was to climb Mount Everest. That was always the dream. Ever since I was 7 years old, that's been the dream. I've had a poster on my wall since I was a child. But that dream was always something I would do tomorrow. It was a dream that something I would always do the next day, one day, someday, maybe, at some point. And here I was, paralyzed from the waist down, and that became my fundamental focus. Everything I did from that point to the next part of my journey was focused at that dream. But the dream was miles away. I had to set myself goals. I had a journey. I had a pathway. I had a rocky road. That road started off with just being able to move my toes, then being able to move my feet, my ankles, my knees, my hips, how to stand, how to sit, how to balance, how to take my first steps, how to take my first several steps, how to walk without walking poles, how to walk on crutches. All of these things was all steps, and every stage of it became a little win, something I would celebrate, something that I would embrace, something that I would enjoy, something that I would get involved with, really knuckle down to those small, significant wins. And I climbed my first mountain on crutches. I climbed Pen y Fan, the highest mountain in the southern hemisphere of the UK. And it wasn't a pretty sight, right? I didn't do it with grace and elegance, okay? I did it with difficulty. I struggled. And if you ever Google my name, you'll see that video and you will see that there was no elegance involved, but I did it. I did it under my own steam. I did it under my own power. And I did it because I gave that goal everything. That was goal number one. I moved on, climbed other mountains, took myself outside of my comfort zone, pushed myself, pressed myself. And eventually, after several years, 8 to be precise, eventually I took on the ultimate goal, Everest. Now, that didn't come without its challenges either. We had planned to leave on the 2nd of May, 2020. We all know what happened in 2020. The world stopped. Everybody got off. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had any ideas. Communication was a struggle. The world woke up paralyzed. And during that time, my trip up Everest cancelled, obviously. So what did I do? Well, I set about building a platform to help people just like me. Not paralyzed people. No. Everybody. People in business. People who had services, products. People who wanted to go out there and to sell what they were doing away from the negative space of social media. See No Bounds as a business directory and platform was born. Within the first month, we had 40 signups. We ran the US Festival, a festival all online, just like this one. We ran 300 events over 3 days with an audience of 96,000 attendees. Why? Because people needed a space to communicate. They needed a network. When everything turned upside down, everyone inverted to their communities. The community centers were gone. The networking face-to-face, that was finished. That wasn't happening. So we created a space that was safe, that people could promote their products, their services, their industries, and what they were doing. And with that, See No Bounds grew. Everest was always in the background. We had planned to go for a second attempt in May 2021, but the UK went back into lockdown. The Nepal went into the red zone, and so that attempt was then postponed. So I inverted that energy back into See No Bounds. We pushed and we grew. We launched it as a network. We ended up with 2,500 members globally. We were running 30 events a month. Everything was growing. Everything was moving in the right direction. Success. In 2022, myself and my team, we embarked on Everest. We landed at Kathmandu, one of the most craziest in my whole existence. We then had to go from Kathmandu to Lukla, the most dangerous airport in the world. We had to land at on a runway that was 1,000 yards long. If you get it landing, you crash into a wall. If you get it wrong on takeoff, you crash into a cliff face. The margin for error was very, very slim. Fortunately, we had a good pilot. We achieved it. We entered the gateways to Everest. We had to overcome heights. We had to overcome fatigue, altitude sickness, exhaustion. We had to work as a team. We had to trust in each other. We had to have faith in our abilities and inabilities. We had to have faith in our guides and our porters. We had to have faith in the process that we were going to get from point A to point B. And we did 65 kilometers each way. We eventually reaches Base Camp Everest, the new goal. My dream was always to summit Everest, but I live with a life-determined condition. CRPS will eventually kill me. I know that. I'm going to eventually, my internal organs will stop working, my nervous system will break down, and eventually CRPS will be my demise. And I know that, and I'm cool with that. I'm comfortable with that. I know what's going to kill me. I know how it's going to kill me. I just don't know when that's going to happen. So for me, my goalpost needed to change because I could never get into that level of altitude and my nervous system being able to cope with it. So Everest Summit, if I went for it and if I achieved it, would be a one-way ticket. So I moved the goalpost. Nothing wrong with that. I still achieved my goal, by the way. I still got to Everest. I stood at base camp and I looked into the Himalayas, one of the most amazing places on Earth. The Kumbh Icefall, the most dangerous place on Earth, sat in the heart of the Kumbh Valley, an environment that is constantly changing, a landscape that is constantly moving. You are literally stood on a moving ice cube. So what do you do when you've achieved your lifelong goal, achieving Everest Base Camp? Well, you've got to go back to Gorakshep, which is the highest town in the world, and you've got to have food, and you've got to have rest, and you've got to have sleep. You are literally exhausted. You are living on a fraction of the oxygen that you would be living on at sea level. Everything is a struggle. You have to remind yourself to breathe. And then you wake up at 4:30 the next morning, like I did, and you summit another mountain, summited Kalapata. And I climbed that mountain in the dark. And I remember sitting on a rock, 6,000 meters in the pitch black, watching the sunrise over Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. And I sat on that rock and I cried. And I'll tell you why I cried. for many reasons, but one significant. I realized the difference between dreams and goals. You see, the dream had always been Everest. Every goal I'd ever set had always been to reach Everest. But actually, the real dream was a poster I'd had on my wall since I was 7 years old. An image that now sat at the summit of Kalapatar. I was looking at the high definition, three-dimensional image of a poster I've had on my wall since I was a child. And it was that epiphany, that moment of realization. Everest wasn't the dream. The view of Kalapatar was the dream. Everest was the goal. I had a dream, I set goals. I achieved each one of those goals individually, and I reached the end goal. If I hadn't had the dream of that image, I would never have set those goals and I would never have reached it. If I'd never gone for those goals, I would never have reached Kalapatar, I'd never have summited, and I would never be sat on a rock looking at my lifelong dream. Now, not only have I achieved my dreams, I've also achieved my goals. And so you set new goals. That's life. But am I successful because I reached Everest? Or am I unsuccessful because I didn't reach summit? And that's an interesting one when you're talking about what is success and what is failure. I consider myself successful. I moved my goalposts. I aimed at a different target and I achieved that target. I broke a world record. I became the first person with CRPS ever to reach Everest Base Camp. So for me, it's a success. I then went on and I shared my story to anybody that would listen. I do talks in front of learning organizations, schools, colleges, universities. I do talks in front of corporate events. Last year alone, I did 81 talks. That hit an audience. If I collated that audience, I would have filled the Royal Albert Hall 4 times. I have shared my message, my journey from waking up one day paralyzed to climbing Everest, my summit. And I get messages every single day, literally every single day. I've had one today saying that people have been inspired because of something I've done or something I've said. People are driven because of the messages that I'm sharing and the stories that I'm telling people, my experiences, my moments. And with that, people are getting inspired and they're motivated to go and become the best version of themselves. But for me, that journey has not been a smooth walk in the park. It's been suicide attempt. It's been paralysis. It's been embarrassments. It's been struggles, my mental health, my mental well-being, my physical health, my physical well-being. In all of that time, I've had cancer. I've had a divorce. I've gone through bankruptcy. But now I stand here and I consider myself successful, very successful. I'm successful financially. I'm successful in marriage, yet I've been divorced and bankrupt. I'm successful in health, and yet I'm living with a death sentence. I'm successful with my friendships. I'm successful in the people that I surround myself with. I'm successful as a sporting athlete. I've competed for my local team, my country, in several different sports, but yet I've missed more shots than I've ever achieved. I'm successful in my charitable endeavors. I've raised now probably, I don't know, close to at least £300,000 for charity. Makes me successful. Why can I say people that I'm successful? Because I understand the value of failing. I understand that if I was always successful in everything I ever done, I wouldn't be here now. I'd have successfully killed myself. Greatest success has been because of my greatest failure, my failed attempt at my own life. And off the back of that failed attempt, I have succeeded time and time again. So when you are moving forward in whatever direction you're looking at, whether it be in a lifelong goal or ambition, or whether it be in a business transaction, or whether you just have an idea of what you want to achieve in life, don't put so much pressure on what success looks like, because success will come depending on how hard you work, depending on how determined you are, depending on how often you move forward. We learn from our failings. We grow from our failings. Our failings is what makes the road tough, but what makes success so sweet. You see, the road to success is riddled with failings. And when you fall over, these things happen. And we don't take these lessons. We don't take these lessons at the value that they're offered at. Okay. And there's many times in my life and many stories that I can share, little stories like when I climbed up Penny Van in a wheelchair for the first time. There's 111 drainage trenches on Penny Van. I had planned for everything except those 111 drainage trenches. Every single one of them a different challenge. Every single one of them had a different method of which I had to approach it in order to get over them and to move on. 111 different challenges in order to achieve one goal. We overcome them, and eventually I reached the summit of Penny Van. And then I remember the descent. It was something else I overlooked that day with my wheelchair, a wheeled vehicle up on top of a mountain with a man in it who's paralyzed. Brakes. I thought of everything except brakes. So here I am on that descent off a mountain in a wheeled vehicle without brakes. Do you remember the 111 drainage trenches I was just talking about? 111 opportunities for me to stop, for me to recalculate, regather my thoughts, move on. I went down that hill, drainage trench to drainage trench. The challenges on the way up became my literal lifesaver on the way down. It took me 4.5 hours to climb Penny Van. This is a mountain that as an able-bodied man, I could do in 45 minutes. But it didn't matter. Something I learned. It didn't matter how long it took me. It didn't matter how tough it was. It didn't matter how hard it was. It didn't matter what I had to overcome. The point of the matter is, in both scenarios, as an able-bodied man doing it in 45 minutes or as a wheelchair user doing it in 4.5 hours, the point of the matter is I started in the same place and I finished in the same place. Sometimes we forget that actually it doesn't have to be done in a hurry. It doesn't have to be done tomorrow. It doesn't have to be done at speed or at pace. Sometimes steady is enough. And this is a lesson we learned on Everest when we were climbing Everest. There's a Nepalese saying called Pistadi Bistadi. It means slowly. How do you conquer altitude? Slowly. Now, let's talk about Sino Bounds. And this is a story that I haven't necessarily shared in public yet. So what a great forum to talk about when we're talking about that rocky road to success. Let's talk about a business that I started over a decade ago. A business that was formed out of the heart of a blog, of a guy that was doing crazy challenges to try and find myself. A guy that was trying to find his place in a world that he was completely lost in. Someone who one day woke up paralyzed. It moved from a blog into a marketplace, selling disability products. From there, we went into COVID and it progressed and pivoted again. Now it's a business directory helping other people to work with each other, communicate, connect. Always keeping that fundamental vision, though, to help people understand the value of survival so that they know what thriving looks like. For network business, it pivoted again. Now our membership was growing. We were running events. We literally took over the world overnight. And that success was actually our greatest downfall. We literally grew our business to death. We now have a team of 34 people. We're having to manage the team. We're having to work with them. We're having to build and develop. We're having to meet customer demand. We're having to put on more events because of more demand. More events mean more people. Every time we decided to launch a network group, we needed to find a new team. It became more than what we could handle. There was just me and my wife, Charlotte. And of course, I'm a motivational speaker, so I'm not even in the business half the time. I was out doing my own thing, working hard, building my own brand, as well as trying to support Charlotte to build See No Bounce. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew. And then one day, me and Charlotte sat down, and we had a realization that we were killing ourselves. We were burning out. Charlotte was working 16, 17, 18 hours every day. Weekends, bank holidays, evenings. Every conversation we would have would be about See No Bounce. We lost ourselves. It was no longer me and Charlotte. It was us and See No Bounce. It became a beast. And so when we hit that point of burnout, that point where we couldn't take it anymore, that point where we had nothing else to give, we only had one option: to exit. And that's exactly what we did. We found someone who was already running a business almost identical to ours. It was so identical. My name is Jamie Stewart McAnsh. The guy who took over See No Bounce, his name was Jamie Stewart. When I say it was close, they could not have been any closer. And so I had a conversation with Jamie, and I said, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to achieve. And the whole deal was around the members, making sure that they were looked after, around the hosts and the event coordinators, making sure that they were looked after. On the 20th of February, 2024, Charlotte and I decided to exit our business. By the 29th of February, 9 days later, contracts had been signed, the deal had been delivered, and See No Bounce had been transferred over to the Circle Network. We ran events introducing Jamie to the rest of the team, to the rest of the members. We took a whole business, a platform, and integrated it into another organization that was already running it. Our members were happy. They were looked after. They actually didn't even notice the transition. And Charlotte and I was able to exit our business. Now, was that a failing or a success? I don't know, it's a tough one to answer. We successfully grew the business so big that we couldn't look after it anymore. But did we fail because we exited? No, we took control. We took control over ourselves, our relationships, our life. Was See No Bounce going to be the end for Jamie and Charlotte? I don't know. Who knows? Potentially, possibly, maybe. I wasn't willing to take that risk. So by exiting the business, we became even more successful. Because you see, Charlotte decided that actually she's really good at event organizing, really good at people management. So she set up on her own. She ran her own business, started something new. She now runs a VA business. Within 2 weeks, Charlotte was at full capacity. She cannot take on any more clients. She's doing more now in less time. We're earning more with less work. We're not having to run events every single week, every single month. We're not having to work every bank holiday, every weekend. We've now got our life back. We now get to go and take our dog for a walk. We get to train. because in literally weeks, 6 weeks, we're climbing Kilimanjaro. I'm aiming for another world record, and I'm climbing them on a set of CAFOs, which is a carbon-built composite fiber product built by an organization called Tuan, which will mean that I can climb this mountain without the use of crutches. I'll be able to do it on my own steam. So by exiting my business, I've been able to do that. My speaking work has now gone absolutely ballistic, which means I'm now sharing my story. I'm encouraging and motivating more people, which means I get more messages from people saying, thank you. I've done this because of you. So sometimes we look at what is that image of success and what is that image of failing? And we think that they're set. This is failing, this is success. And it's not. It's a rocky road that marries the two. I am incredibly successful because I understand the value of failing. I know when to walk away. I know when I've done everything that I physically can, and now I have to let someone else take over. It's a story of my life as someone who's dyslexic, someone who's dyspraxic and dyscalculic, and someone that's ADHD. You have to understand and respect your abilities, your disabilities, your barriers. You have to respect your threshold. And even though in business and in life, sometimes they throw you curveballs, and sometimes we don't always necessarily know where those curveballs are coming from. But what we do have to do is react. We've got to stop beating ourselves up. If we speak to other human beings like we speak to ourselves on a daily basis, we'd be incarcerated. How many times have you called yourself fat, ugly, or stupid? It's not true. I know you're perfect. I can't even see you, and I know you're perfect. Why do I know this? What evidence I have? Because there was a day that you were born, and at that moment, the nurse and the midwife, they took you into their hands. The first thing they did is slap your ass. Then they handed you to their mum. And at that point, when you were handed to your mum looked at you and went, you're perfect. So I know you're perfect. How well do you know that you're perfect? How well do you know the things that you've achieved? How many times have you decided to exit something because it's the right decision? How many times have you pursued something and then felt that you failed? There's no right or wrong. We don't fail in life. We either win or we learn. So I'm going to give you now, I'm not sure how much longer I've got left, and Marianne will soon poke me.
We're pretty much to wrap up, but oh my God, I could listen to you all day, Jamie. That's amazing.
Thank you. But I am going to give you a final top tip before I go. Okay. Please. I'm going to give you permission. I'm going to give you the permission to fail, because from that failing, you will succeed. And I'm going to give you the permission to fall over. I'm going to tell you it's okay to fall over. It's okay not to get it right. It's okay to sometimes get it wrong. But you need to do just one thing. What is the key to being successful? Is when you fall over, always get back up. Thank you very much.
That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. It doesn't matter how many times I hear this story. So out of your 81 talks, I think 3 or 4 of them were here last year. So I could listen to you all day long, Jamie. It's one of the most inspirational stories I've ever heard. Can't believe you climbed Mount Everest. I can't believe you do anything on a daily basis. I'll be like, hey, Charlotte, how's it going? What's Jamie doing today? What's he climbing today? What obstacle is he overcoming today? Because it is absolutely, I mean, you can't say anything else other than holy inspiration, right? So you think you can't do something? Uh-huh. Jamie will set you straight. So thank you again so much. And thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
here. I know there's a huge time difference between us and the UK, and you're literally on your way to your next thing. So thank you so much for making the time for that. And thank you, Robert J. Moore, who is next, for moving over, and also Jose for moving over so I could make room to get you in here before you
Oh,
take
bless you.
your others. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so
I
much.
have got a fairly full diary, and I'm not going to lie, it's pretty
Always,
chocker. So I'm
always.
hitting the road as soon as we're finished. So thank you so much for having me.
Super grateful for you.
I've got to hit the highway. But guys, have a great rest of the event. Have a great day. I know it's quite early over there.
Yes.
So God bless you all, and speak to you soon. Take
Thank
care.
you so much. Hugs to both you and Charlotte. Mwah. Thank you
Bye
again.
now.
Anyways, so Jamie's story is always so super inspirational. I mean, honestly, if he can overcome and be okay with everything he's done, then some of the daily tasks that we make a big deal over, who said what to who on social media, who said this way, did it that way, like these are minor baby things. So this is absolutely amazing.